I'd like to introduce now another family member, Manny Badillo. He'll be, he's the nephew of Thomas J. Sugroy of Marcia McClellan, who died in the WC North Tower. And I also wanted to make an announcement that we'll have some moderated questions and answer period for the panel after Bob, and we'll be handing out cards and pencils and collecting those. And please put on the top if you'd like to direct it to anyone in particular on the panel, or put anyone. Thank you. Manny.
I want to thank everyone for coming here today. I want to thank everyone for wanting to inquire more and listen to the stories of survivors and the victims of 9/11. Which the evidence points to something very different than what we were told by our government. My uncle Thomas Joseph Scroy was the rock and the mentor of my family, and it's unbelievable that he's not here with us today. He should be, and I carry a picture with him, and that's what I have. I have incredible memories. He still teaches me from beyond the grave. And he was the most successful one in our family. And to learn that the investigation that was started 441 days after he was murdered, to learn that that investigation was wholly incomplete, and it was ended when its own mission statement was supposed to be ongoing, was baffling when first learning of it. But it upsets me so much more now to know that the evidence does not point to 19 Saudi hijackers who couldn't even fly Cessnas and a man in a cave on kidney dialysis for the past few years. I just want to tell you about the worst days of September 11th. It wasn't that day. The worst days were the days after September 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, when the hope started to fade, and we just couldn't figure out why it was our family that was affected. There were 3,000 innocents murdered that day, and there has never been a proper criminal investigation. Nobody's been held accountable, and there's been no justice for any of the family members who lost somebody that day. We were all traumatized. We still are traumatized, this entire nation. And that's why I think it's taken so long for people to come to the conclusions that we're all coming to now, being that more and more people are speaking about the science and about the history, about the historical precedent of false flag terror operations. It's sixth grade physics. We have children, we have grandchildren here. Open up the textbooks, read them. Gravity, free fall speed, law of angular momentum, law of inertia. There's so many different things that all it takes is a little reading, a little research. And you'll find out what we were told were lies by our government. Since September 11th, I listened blindly to what the government had to say. We were all fed a story, a myth that had no basis, no evidence behind it. And I believed it for 4 years before I started to read and research on my own, to listen to what researchers, independent researchers had to say, to understand the physics and the history and our government response on that day. I served in the military until right before September 11th. I love this country, I'm a patriot, and maybe I was blinded by that patriotism immediately after September 11th. But it is our duty and it is our responsibility to question, and when you do question and you find out the answers and you realize that the evidence points to an inside job by criminal elements within our government as well as criminal elements in foreign intelligence agencies. Now, some of these, statements might be a little provocative, but I challenge everyone to research on their own and read and listen to eyewitness testimony and listen to independent expert testimony and look at the videos that some of you will be seeing later on today. You saw already Press for Truth about what the family members had to go through. We had, I can't understand how we had to petition the government 441 days after finally they gave in when the Challenger exploded. I think an investigation was started a week after. Why weren't the planes put back together? Why was federal protocol broken in that regard? Why was the pit cleaned up so quickly? There's a million questions still. What happened to Building 7? The thing is, all these questions are still unanswered by our government. And it is up to us, all of us here today, and everyone that you all speak to when you get home later and when you get on the phone and when you sit around the dinner table. It is our responsibility to speak to the people that are closest to us and whomever, really, about what you're going to learn today and what you will learn if you really want to. You see, there's a tremendous segment in this country that lives in apathy, and that's witnessed with consistency by a group that I work with, wearechange.org. I'm sure many of us have heard of it. wearechange.org is a group that is a little different from the 9/11 truth groups that are around the country. wearechange.org is actually throughout the country, and we are very active. We're a very youthful bunch, and we're very active in knowledging people. And knowledge is the tool that we could all use in order to come to the conclusions which we're all eventually going to reach. It's very straightforward. You see, buildings don't come down that fast. What we saw was not collapsing buildings. We saw exploding buildings. When you speak to the first responders, when you speak to the firefighters that actually went in there and tried to first rescue people and then had to recover the bodies after, the people that tried, their hardest to keep everything in perspective. You speak to those people who are also going through the trauma now, and you hear a very different story than what we were told by our government. I found out from, and I want to thank everyone here, but also the researchers that have gone public with their findings. There was actually in Vancouver a few months ago, there was a symposium, and it was revealed that 503 first responders' testimonies were given as oral histories to the commissioner of the FDNY at the time of 9/11, which is Chief Von Essen, who now conveniently works for presidential candidate Giuliani. And you find that under their direction, 503 oral histories were taken of first responders. Out that at the very minimum 118 of them said that they heard explosions going off throughout the buildings. Now, who are you going to believe? You're going to believe 118 heroes? Or you're going to believe a government that had every single reason to lie about 9/11? When my family would get a lot of the mail from the ongoing, the investigations during the 9/11 Commission, and when you find out that 70% of the family's questions were never answered, it's outrageous. If any one of us in this room, and 3 of us had their family murdered, but if anyone else in this room had their family murdered, would we be okay with only 3 out of every 10 questions being answered in the supposed investigation? Why hasn't anyone been held accountable yet? Why is the pit still open? There's no memorial there. There's no buildings there. Why was it cleaned up so quickly? Why was a crime scene cleaned up so quickly? There is one building that's been built, though, at Ground Zero. There has been one building that was rebuilt within a year. It's on the land that was leased by Larry Silverstein, the leaseholder who 6 weeks before 9/11 took out a 99-year lease on the property, when a couple of years before there was a study done that it would cost up to $1 billion to remove all the asbestos from the towers. Larry Silverstein, who profited by the billions from the destruction of the towers 6 weeks after he signed that lease, Larry Silverstein, who in an interview said that he decided to pull the buildings. Now, pull it is a demolition term. We all know that. All you got to do is just find out demolition companies, go to the internet, watch what demolitions look like. Richard Gage will show us later on today what they look like, and it's right in front of our face. It's pretty obvious that those buildings were taken down by a controlled demolition. Now I want to tell you something else. Why are we learning more things today than we've learned in 6 years? That should enrage all of us. Why is the mainstream media not doing their job as the self-appointed fourth estate in this country? The mainstream media, the vast majority, over 85%, is owned by 5 corporations. What's a business's first goal? Profit. What's the second? Perhaps objective reporting, but I haven't seen any of it. That story about the 503 firefighters, that was reported once in the New York Times in 2005, never to be reported again. Just like Building 7 coming down in the fashion of a controlled demolition, never to be reported again. Sporadically, you would read a little bit about that here and there. But with wearechange.org, which is a group that is worldwide now, we're confronting the politicians all around the world. We're confronting the criminals that are helping to cover up the actual events of 9/11. We are down at Ground Zero every Saturday speaking with people, engaging people. That's the best way to have people understand what really happened, is to speak with them. We could sit behind our computers and we can. Because if they know that an apathetic population is just going to sit back and turn on the TV, as opposed to really engaging their own senses and engaging other people with the unanswered questions of 9/11, then where are we going to be? I don't think anybody here should have to lose another family member due to a government carrying murder on its own people. There's been historical precedent already. The USS Maine in Havana Harbor, Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt, we were intercepting those radio signals for weeks in advance, months possibly. Why do you think our carriers were out of the harbor? But yet we kept every other ship in there and sacrificed over 2,000 servicemen. Gulf of Tonkin incident. The Reichstag, their country, but very simply, there's been historical precedent for false flag terror operations. The Lusitania. That's right. That's outstanding, and these are the conversations, and these are the facts which we need to speak with people about. We need to speak with them about the physics. We need to speak with them about the stories. There are hero first responders that are dying today based on the lies that our government told us. There are hundreds that have died already. Why haven't we heard any of their stories? There are thousands, tens of thousands that are sick and dying today. They will leave this life prematurely based on a lie that the air was okay to breathe. Why were the politicians that went down there to visit covered in asbestos suits? when all the first responders got were masks. Something is drastically wrong with the official government myth. We all got copies of the 9/11 Commission report, read through there. Why wasn't there mention of Building 7? That was never hit by a plane. That steel skyscrapers don't collapse, never have before. Commercially heavily reinforced steel skyscrapers have never collapsed from fire either before or after 9/11. If skyscrapers fall to the sky from fire, the way Building 7 did, then we should be evacuating every single office building on Monday morning. I mean, we have to really start speaking about this, and it doesn't happen overnight. Like I said, it took me 4 years. I came to conclusions when I began to read books and listen to firsthand eyewitness accounts. When you listen to John Schroeder's account, one of the first firefighters in the building, one of the last firefighters to leave, when you hear that when he made it to the lobby only about 10 minutes after the first plane hit the North Tower, he said the lobby looked like a bomb hit it. When he was going up the stairs, he said he was bounced around like a ping pong ball from explosions. He said the elevators blew out 10 minutes after the plane impacted. That's not what the official government myth told us. So speak with family, friends, speak with whomever you can about this. I mean, there are people that are suffering today from post-traumatic stress. There are first responders that are dying today. Their lungs have pounds of dust. Dust, fine dust, comes from explosions, not building collapses. The John Feelgood Foundation, feelgood.com. Go to that organization, show your friends and family. Help out our heroes who went in to recover my uncle's body. We found my uncle's body 2 months later. We had to go through that same loss, that same feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, knowing that he'll never come back. My grandparents, after we lost my uncle, got extremely sick right after. We lost my grandmother already, and my grandfather is advancing with Alzheimer's. That's what happens when you lose a son. You lose yourself. And we should be demanding justice for people that have for victims that have received no justice, for family members that have received no justice, for first responders that have received no justice. We collectively, our nation is sitting back and letting our government pass laws that are restricting our rights here at home. We are letting our country sit back and take a few $1 million away from children that need it, but yet support a war machine of hundreds of billions of dollars every year. What's happening to us? Why are we letting this happen? Why is there the couple of hundred that's in this room right now, and there's 300 million Americans that all, once they understood and acknowledged what happened, once they listened to the survivor stories, everyone's going to come to very different conclusions. But we have to get active. We have to speak. We have to ask the newspapers. We have to petition. We have to ask our local television stations. We got to ask them, when are they going to begin to cover the questions that were never answered? I miss my uncle dearly. He was not killed by Muslims that were demonizing throughout the world so we can have perpetual war and profit for all the industries that benefit from war. The evidence points to elements within our government. Our government is responsible for the vast cover-up, for the injustice that's been served so far. But we are the government. We are the people. We can make the difference. We have to begin to do that more than we're doing now. Because by this time next year, this auditorium should be packed, and we will be hopefully be having more family members. We hopefully will be having more first responders that are suffering today, that are dying. It's been a great tragedy, September 11th. It traumatized all of us. But when that trauma subsides and we're able to more objectively look at the evidence, my goodness, it's about that time that we take action. So I just ask everyone, in leaving here today, you're going to see a wealth of evidence, you're going to have a wealth more stories. Remember the names that you hear. There's victims that still haven't received justice. There's survivors that still can't figure out why they're so sick. The government still is ignoring us, and until we speak up and speak out and get angry and get enraged and begin to question and begin to take actions, call up radio stations, get on the air, write your newspapers, call them, write your local TVs, call them, get on public access if you can. Organize on your own groups. Every one of us right now, with the amount of knowledge we're going to walk away with today, can organize our own group and have people sitting with them and learning something new. Again, it shouldn't take 6 years for us to learn new things about what happened right in front of our eyes. So I want to thank everybody here today. I want to thank you for helping to pursue justice for my uncle. And I just ask everyone to please take actions in every way you can. Go to wearechange.org, go to feelgoodfoundation.com, and learn a little bit more. Go to Scholars for 9/11 Truth and Justice. Go to Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Go to the Pilots for 9/11 Truth. Listen to what independent expert testimony says. Listen to what the first-hand eyewitness accounts. Listen to what they say. Listen to their experience. Speak the names of people. And then take action so we can get our country back. There are criminals that are running it right now. There is tremendous injustice, and we have to find justice for people that should be standing with us today. Thank you very much. God bless you all.